Suddenly, my wife became unusually loving and insisted on cooking my favorite meal because I wasn't feeling well. Something in my gut felt wrong, so I took the food to work and shared it with a colleague. Less than an hour later, I heard a scream that changed my life forever. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. The winter light in Red Willow, Missouri, had a particular quality that year, pale and thin, like something diluted. It filtered through the windows of the two-story house on Maple Street with all the warmth of a fluorescent bulb, casting everything in shades of gray that matched the mood inside. He stood at the kitchen sink, watching ice crystals form at the edges of the window pane. Outside, the Missouri River moved slow and dark between its banks, carrying broken branches and debris from the recent thaw. The courthouse dome rose above the bare trees downtown, its oxidized copper turned green decades ago. Red Willow was the kind of town where families measured time in generations, where the same names appeared on gravestones in 3 different centuries, where everyone knew your business before you did. He'd lived here his entire life, 34 years, married for 11 of them. The house was quiet, not the peaceful quiet of a Sunday morning or the comfortable silence of 2 people who didn't need words. This was different. This was the quiet of a room after an argument, when all the air has been sucked out and nobody knows how to breathe it back in. It was the quiet of separate bedrooms and closed doors. The quiet of a marriage dying one silent day at a time. He turned from the window and looked at the kitchen table. 2 coffee mugs sat there, both cold. Brenda had left hers half full, lipstick stain on the rim, before heading upstairs. That was new, leaving things unfinished. 6 months ago, she would have rinsed it, put in the dishwasher, wiped the counter. She was meticulous about those things. Now she left trails everywhere, like she was already half gone and just going through the motions of presence. The refrigerator hummed. The heating system clicked on. Somewhere upstairs, water ran through pipes. These were the only sounds in the house that used to be full of life. He remembered when Kelsey was 8, running through these rooms with her brother, their laughter bouncing off the walls. He remembered music playing from Brenda's phone while she cooked dinner, singing off-key to songs she loved. He remembered conversations over breakfast, plans for the weekend, arguments that ended in laughter or compromise. When had it stopped? He couldn't pinpoint an exact moment. It had been gradual, like watching a plant die. You don't notice the first brown leaf or the second, but one day you look up and realize the whole thing is wilted. The phones had started buzzing around September. Late at night, Brenda would glance at the screen, then set it face down on the nightstand without opening the message. She started showering at odd times, before bed, first thing in the morning, sometimes both. She joined a gym in October, talked about getting healthy, about needing space to think. He told himself it was normal. Marriage had phases. People needed hobbies, needed time to themselves. He worked long hours at the municipal maintenance garage, came home tired and dirty. Maybe she was bored. Maybe she needed something of her own, but his gut knew better. His gut had been whispering for months, and he'd been ignoring it because facing the truth meant breaking everything open, and he wasn't ready for that. Not with 2 kids, not with a mortgage, not with 11 years of history. So he'd stayed quiet and watched his wife become a stranger. Footsteps on the stairs pulled him from his thoughts. Brenda appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day in dark jeans and a sweater he didn't recognize. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She'd lost weight recently. Her cheekbones more pronounced, her wrists thinner. The gym, she said, taking care of herself. She smiled when she saw him. It was a careful smile, the kind you give to someone you're trying to convince. You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep. Still feeling sick? He'd woken that morning with his head pounding, his muscles aching like he'd been beaten. Fever, maybe. Or stress. His body been doing strange things lately. Dizzy spells, fatigue that wouldn't lift, nausea that came and went. A little, he said. She moved past him to the stove, pulling out a pot. I'll make you something. You need to eat. He watched her from the sink. She hadn't cooked for him in months. Most nights, she claimed she wasn't hungry, picked at a salad while he heated up leftovers for himself and the kids. But now she was pulling ingredients from the refrigerator, moving with purpose. "You don't have to," he said. "I want to." She didn't look at him when she said it. "You've been working so hard. You need your strength." Something in her tone made the hair on his arms stand up. It was too bright, too solicitous, like she was performing concern rather than feeling it. He stayed at the sink and watched her work. She diced onions, added them to the pot with butter. The smell filled the kitchen, sharp and familiar. She added ground beef, broke it apart with a wooden spoon. Tomatoes from a can. Spices from the rack above the stove. It looked like her mother's chili, the recipe she used to make when they first got married, back when she still wanted to impress him. "Your favorite," she said, glancing over her shoulder. His favorite. She remembered. Or maybe she was counting on him remembering. The pot simmered. She stirred it slowly, methodically. Then she reached up to the cabinet above the stove, the one where they kept the vitamins and over-the-counter medications. Her back was to him. She stood on her toes, fingers searching the shelf. He should have looked away, should have trusted, should have given her the benefit of the doubt. But he didn't. He watched her palm close around a small bottle, watched her glance toward the doorway, not at him, but past him, checking if the kids were near. Watched her thumb open the cap with practiced ease. Watched her tip something into the pot. Not much, just a careful shake, like adding salt or pepper. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, but enough. She stirred the pot 3 times, then returned the bottle to the cabinet and closed the door. His blood went cold. The room seemed to tilt. His ears rang with a high, thin sound, like the whine of machinery. He gripped the edge of the sink to steady himself, his knuckles white. She turned, smiling. "Almost done. You want to take it for lunch?" His mouth was dry. "Sure. Good." She ladled the chili into a plastic container, snapped the lid on tight. "It's better after it sits for a while. The flavors blend." She handed him the container. It was warm in his hands. He looked at her, really looked at her. The woman he'd married. The mother of his children. The person he'd trusted more than anyone in the world. Her eyes met his, and for just a second, something flickered there. Fear, maybe, or calculation. Then it was gone, replaced by that same careful smile. "Drive safe," she said. He took the container to work. The municipal maintenance garage sat on the east side of town, a squat concrete building that housed the trucks and equipment the town used to keep streets clear, sewers functioning, and parks maintained. He'd worked there for 12 years, ever since graduating from the technical college 2 towns over. The pay was steady. The benefits were decent. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and in a town like Red Willow, that counted for something. Dale Rooker was already in the break room when he arrived, pouring coffee from the ancient machine that had been there longer than either of them. Dale was 42, built like a linebacker who'd let himself go soft around the middle. He had 4 kids, a wife who worked nights as a nurse, and a laugh that could shake the walls. "You look like hell," Dale said, eyeing him over the rim of his mug. "Feel like it too. Flu's going around. My youngest brought it home from school." Dale sat at the table, pulled out his phone to check messages. "You eat breakfast?" "Not yet." "Me neither. Forgot to pack anything." Dale grinned. "Story of my life." The plastic container sat in his bag. He could feel its weight, could smell the chili through the sealed lid. What had she added? How much? Was it enough to make him sick or enough to kill him? And why? The questions churned in his gut, mixing with the fever and the dizziness until he thought he might throw up. Dale was still talking, something about his daughter's basketball game, but the words washed over him like static. He pulled out the container and set it on the table. Dale's eyes lit up. "That smells good. Homemade. Brenda made it. Damn, you're lucky. Haven't had a home-cooked meal in a week." Dale leaned forward, inhaling. "Chili." He looked at the container, looked at Dale, looked at his hands, which were shaking just slightly. If he ate it, he'd know for sure what Brenda had done. But if he was right, if she'd really added something, then knowing wouldn't matter because he'd be sick or dying or worse. And if he was wrong, if he'd imagined it, if paranoia and stress and sleepless nights had made him see something that wasn't there, then he was losing his mind, and his marriage was already over anyway. Dale was still looking at the container. "You want it?" he heard himself say. Dale blinked. "What?" "I'm not hungry. You said you didn't pack lunch." "Take it." "You sure?" No. Yeah, go ahead. Dale didn't need to be asked twice. He pulled the container across the table, popped the lid. Steam rose, carrying the scent of beef and tomatoes and spices. It smelled exactly like it always had. Normal. Safe. Dale grabbed a plastic spoon from the dispenser and dug in. He watched each bite. Watched Dale chew and swallow. Watched him nod appreciatively. This is really good, Dale said around a mouthful. Tell Brenda thanks. I will. Dale ate half the container before the radio crackled with a call about a water main break on 4th Street. They both stood, pulled on their coats, grabbed their gear. The chili sat on the table, still steaming. Finish it later, Dale said, heading for the door. They spent the next hour in the cold, knee-deep in muddy water, working to shut off the main valve. The ground was frozen. The valve was stuck. By the time they got it closed, they were both soaked and shivering. Back at the garage, Dale went to the break room to warm up. He returned to his truck to grab dry gloves. 10 minutes later, someone screamed. He was halfway across the parking lot when he heard it. A sound of pure panic, high and sharp. He ran. The break room door was open. Inside, Dale was on the floor convulsing. His eyes were rolled back, foam at the corners of his mouth. His body jerked in violent spasms, heels drumming against the linoleum. 2 other workers stood frozen, one with his phone out, the other backing toward the wall. Call 911, he shouted, dropping to his knees beside Dale. He tried to remember first aid training. Seizures. Don't restrain. Clear the area. Turn on side. He grabbed Dale's shoulder, tried to roll him, but Dale's body was rigid, locked in place. Blood trickled from Dale's mouth where he'd bitten his tongue. The convulsions slowed. Dale's breathing turned ragged, wet. Ambulance is coming, someone said behind him. He looked at the table. The chili container sat there, lid off, mostly empty. His hands were shaking again. Not from cold this time. Sirens approached, growing louder. He backed away from Dale, stood against the wall, and waited. The paramedics arrived in 4 minutes. They worked efficiently. Oxygen mask for line, backboard. Dale's eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing. They loaded him onto the stretcher, wheels rattling on the floor, and carried him out to the ambulance. One of the paramedics stayed behind, asking questions. What happened? When did it start? Any known medical conditions? What did he eat? The chili container sat on the table like evidence. He ate that, he said, pointing. The paramedic frowned, pulled on gloves, and carefully placed the container in a plastic bag. We'll take it with us. Might be food poisoning. Food poisoning. The words felt almost laughable. The ambulance left, sirens wailing. The other workers drifted back to their tasks, talking in low voices. He sat alone in the break room, staring at the table where the chili had been. His phone buzzed. A text from Brenda. Hope you're having a good day. Love you. He didn't respond. 20 minutes later, his supervisor appeared in the doorway. Hospital called. They want you to come in. They have questions about what Dale ate. He drove to the hospital in silence, his hands gripping the wheel too tight. Red Willow Medical Center was a 3-story brick building on the north side of town, built in the 60s and renovated twice since. He'd been there for both kids' births, for his father's heart attack, for countless stitches and broken bones over the years. The smell hit him as soon as he walked through the doors. Antiseptic and bleach, and something underneath that might have been fear. A nurse directed him to the emergency department. Dale was in a room behind closed curtains. Machines beeped. Voices spoke in urgent, clipped tones. A doctor intercepted him in the hallway. Young, dark circles under his eyes. Name tag reading Dr. Patel. You're the one who was with Mr. Rooker? Yeah. What exactly did he eat? Chili. Homemade. I gave it to him. Dr. Patel's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. Where did the chili come from? My wife made it. When? This morning. Dr. Patel made notes on his tablet. Mr. Rooker's presenting with severe toxicity. We've stabilized him, but his liver and kidney function are compromised. We're running a full panel now, but based on his symptoms, this looks like poisoning. The word hung in the air between them. Poisoning? What kind? He asked. Too early to say definitively. Could be something metallic, arsenic, thallium. Could be a pesticide. Could be any number of substances. Dr. Patel looked up from his tablet. The chili you brought. Your wife made it specifically for you? Yes. Were you supposed to eat it? Yes. But you gave it to Mr. Rooker instead. I wasn't hungry. Dr. Patel studied him for a long moment. I see. And you feel all right? No symptoms. He thought about the dizziness, the fever, the weakness he'd been experiencing for weeks. I've been sick, on and off, but nothing like this. How long? Month, maybe. Month and a half. Dr. Patel's jaw tightened. I'd like to run some tests on you, too. Blood work. Urine sample. Just to be safe. He nodded. They took him to a different room, drew 4 vials of blood, gave him a cup for the urine sample. A nurse took his temperature, 100.2, and his blood pressure, which was elevated. She asked questions he answered mechanically. Weight loss? Yes. Fatigue? Yes. Muscle pain? Yes. Nausea? Sometimes. How long? Weeks. She wrote everything down. When she left, he sat alone in the exam room and stared at the poster on the wall about hand hygiene. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Brenda. When will you be home? Before he could respond, he heard voices in the hallway. Telling you, the levels are off the charts. Need to notify the police. Get toxicology confirmed first. Police. He stood, opened the door. Dr. Patel was talking to another doctor, both looking at a computer screen. Is Dale going to be okay? He asked. They turned. Dr. Patel's expression was carefully neutral. We're doing everything we can. The next few hours are critical. But he'll survive if we can get his kidney function stabilized. Yes. He's young, relatively healthy. He's got a chance. A chance, not a certainty. He thought about Dale's 4 kids. Thought about Dale's wife working night shifts. Thought about how Dale had laughed that morning, joking about home-cooked meals. Dale should have been safe. Should have been at home with his family, not fighting for his life in a hospital bed because he'd eaten lunch. The lunch meant for someone else. Dr. Patel glanced at the other doctor, then back at him. Mister, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. He gave it. Mr. Holloway, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Do you have any reason to believe your wife would want to harm you? The question should have shocked him, should have felt like an accusation. Instead, it felt like confirmation. Yes, he said. Dr. Patel asked him to wait. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived, a man and a woman, both in their 30s, red Willow PD patches on their shoulders. The woman introduced herself as Officer Martinez, the man as Officer Webb. They had the neutral expressions of people trained to hide judgment. They asked him to tell them everything. So he did. He told them about the marriage falling apart, about the late-night phone calls, about Brenda's behavior changing, about watching her add something to the pot that morning, about giving the lunch to Dale. Officer Martinez took notes. Officer Webb recorded on his phone. And you didn't eat any of it yourself? Webb asked. No. Why not? Because I saw her put something in it. But you gave it to your co-worker anyway. The accusation in his tone was subtle but present. He met Webb's eyes. I didn't think she'd actually do it. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe paranoid. So you used him as a test. The words hit like a slap. No. He stopped. Tried again. I didn't know what to think. I've been sick for weeks. Dizzy. Weak. I thought maybe she'd been. He couldn't finish this sentence. Martinez looked up from her notes. Poisoning you gradually? I don't know. Maybe. Has she tried before? Not that I know of. But I felt wrong for a while. Webb glanced at Martinez. Some unspoken communication passed between them. We're going to need to take your wife's kitchen, Martinez said. Search for the substance. You saw her take it from the cabinet above the stove? Yes. Can you describe the bottle? He closed his eyes, tried to remember. Small. Maybe prescription size. Dark. Brown or amber. Maybe. I didn't see it clearly. And you didn't confront her? No. Why not? Because he'd been afraid. Because confronting her meant admitting his marriage was over. Because he wanted to be wrong so badly that he nearly died for it. I should have, he said. Martinez's expression softened slightly. We'll need you to come to the station. Give a formal statement. And we'll need to speak with your wife. She doesn't know about Dale yet. We gathered that. Webb pocketed his phone. Does she know you're at the hospital? No. She thinks I'm at work. Keep it that way for now. Don't call her. Don't text her. We need to execute a search warrant before she has a chance to dispose of evidence. He nodded. They took him to the police station in the back of a squad car. Not under arrest, they said, just procedure. The station was a brick building next to the courthouse, fluorescent lit and institutional. They put him in an interview room with a table and 3 chairs and brought him bad coffee in a styrofoam cup. A detective joined them, older, gray-haired, name tag reading Detective Morrison. He had the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. Morrison sat across from him and folded his hands on the table. Tell me about your marriage. So he did. Again, more details this time. How they'd met in high school. How she'd been different then. Bright, ambitious, warm. How they'd gotten married young, had kids young, settled in a life in Red Willow because it was home and family was here and it seemed like the right thing to do. How somewhere along the way, she'd stopped being happy. When did you first suspect she was having an affair? Morrison asked. I didn't. Not at first. But you do now. Yes. Based on what? Phone records. Emails. The way she acts. Morrison leaned back. We'll need access to those records. Phone, email, everything. You willing to provide that? Yes. And you're willing to press charges if we find evidence of attempted murder? The question hung there, heavy and final. Attempted murder. His wife. The mother of his children. Yes, he said. Morrison studied him. You're very calm about this. He wasn't calm. He was numb. There was a difference. What else should I be? Most people would be angry. Crying. Something. I'm sure I'll get there. He met Morrison's gaze. Right now, I'm just trying to survive. Morrison nodded slowly. Fair enough. They spent the next 2 hours going through everything. Times, dates, details. He signed forms authorizing access to phone records tied to their family plan. Gave them his email password. Answer questions about life insurance, finances, his health history. Meanwhile, other officers executed a search warrant at his house. He didn't want to imagine that. Brenda opening the door to police, her face when they explained. But he couldn't stop himself. He saw it anyway, playing in his mind like a film. His phone, which they'd taken as evidence, sat on the table between them. It buzzed 3 times. 4, 5. Brenda, trying to reach him. Martinez returned around 3 o'clock. We found a bottle in the cabinet. Antifreeze-based, rat poison, liquid form. Half empty. No receipt. No record of purchase we can find in your credit card history. Bought with cash, Morrison said. Premeditated. We also found an iPad hidden in her closet. Logged into an email account not registered to her primary address. Messages going back 6 months to a Trevor Lang. Ring a bell. Trevor Lang. She mentioned him once. Someone from her gym. They're more than gym buddies. Martinez slid a printed email across the table. You might want to read this. He didn't want to, but he picked it up anyway. The email was dated 3 weeks ago. Subject line, timeline. T. He's getting sicker. Doctor thinks it's flu, but it's lasting longer than it should. Maybe another 2 weeks if I keep the doses low. Then we can start over. Together. Like we planned. I love you. B. The words blurred. He read them again. Then a third time. 2 weeks. She'd given him 2 weeks to live. Morrison's voice seemed to come from far away. There are more. About money. Insurance. How to make it look natural. She did her research. He set the email down. His hands were steady. That surprised him. We're bringing her in now, Martinez said. You should know, there's also paperwork. Life insurance beneficiary change, drafted but not filed. Looks like she was waiting until after. After he was dead. Where are my kids? He asked. Still at school. We can have someone pick them up if you'd like. No, I'll get them. He stood. Am I free to go? Morrison exchanged a look with Martinez. Yes, but stay local. We'll need you for more questions. And you'll need to testify if this goes to trial. It will go to trial? If the evidence holds up? Yes. Attempted murder. Maybe conspiracy if we can tie Mr. Lang to it directly. He nodded, took his keys, left. The drive home felt surreal. Everything looked the same. The courthouse, the river, the bare trees, but nothing felt real. He moved through the world like a ghost, watching but not quite present. His house was marked off with yellow tape. Police vehicles in the driveway. Neighbors standing in clusters on the sidewalk, whispering. He didn't stop. Drove past. Kept going. The high school let out at 3:30. He parked in a lot and waited, watching students stream toward buses and cars. Kelsey emerged with a group of friends, laughing at something on someone's phone. 15 years old, blonde like her mother, but with his eyes, his build. She saw his truck and waved goodbye to her friends. Dad. She climbed in, confused. What are you doing here? Where's Mom? We need to pick up your brother. Why? What's wrong? He didn't answer. Drove to the middle school, 3 blocks away. Their son, Ethan, 12 years old and gangly, was waiting by the curb. He got in the back without asking questions, earbuds in, nodding to whatever music filled his head. Dad's being weird, Kelsey said to her brother. Ethan pulled out one earbud. What? I said, Dad's being weird. He drove to the park by the river, pulled into an empty spot. The playground sat abandoned, swings moving slightly in the wind. This was where he taught Kelsey to ride a bike, where Ethan had fallen out of a tree and broken his wrist. He cut the engine. Dad, seriously, what's going on? Kelsey's voice had an edge now, worry creeping in. He turned to face them. Both kids stared at him with identical expressions, confused, concerned, scared. Your mom did something, he said. Something dangerous. The police are involved. You need to know before you hear it from someone else. Kelsey's face went pale. Is she okay? She's fine, but she's being arrested. For what? He looked at his daughter, at his son, at these 2 people he loved more than anything. How did you tell your children their mother tried to kill you? She poisoned food she gave me, he said quietly. She's been doing it for weeks, making me sick. This morning, I gave a lunch she made to a coworker instead. He's in the hospital now. Critical condition. Silence. Ethan pulled out both earbuds. You're joking. I'm not. That's insane, Kelsey said. Mom wouldn't. She wouldn't do that. I saw her do it. Then why didn't you stop her? I didn't think she'd really. He stopped. Started over. I wanted to be wrong. Kelsey's eyes filled with tears. Is he going to die? The guy who ate it? I don't know. Doctors say maybe not. Maybe. Her voice cracked. Jesus, Dad. Ethan was staring out the window, jaw clenched. Where is she now? Police station. They're questioning her. Are you pressing charges? The question came from his 12-year-old son, whose voice hadn't even finished changing. Yes. Good, Ethan said flatly. Kelsey turned to her brother. What? You heard him. She tried to kill him. She put some other guy in the hospital. Ethan's voice was cold, older than his years. That's not a mistake. That's not an accident. That's attempted murder. Kelsey looked between them, tears streaming now. But she's our mom. She tried to kill our dad, Ethan said. What part of that makes her still our mom? The words landed like stones. Kelsey wiped her eyes, hands shaking. I can't, she looked at him. Did she say why? Not to me, but she's been having an affair, planning to start over with someone else. So, she was going to kill you for money? And freedom, I guess. Kelsey laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. That's so stupid. She could have just divorced you. Divorce doesn't come with a life insurance payout. The implications settled over them. His kid sat in silence, processing. Outside, the river flowed past, indifferent. Finally, Kelsey spoke. You've been sick for weeks. Yes. Was that her too? Probably. Oh my God. Kelsey covered her mouth. I thought you just had the flu. I was annoyed you kept complaining about it. It's not your fault. I should have noticed. I should have. She turned to look at him, really look at him. You look terrible. Are you okay? I don't know yet. They're running tests. Ethan leaned forward from the back seat. Where are we going to stay? The house has police tape. Hotel, I guess. Until they're done processing the scene. What about Mom? She'll be in jail. Good, Ethan said again. Kelsey shot him a look. Stop saying that. Why? It's true. I hope she stays there forever. She's still our mother. No. Ethan cut her off. A mother doesn't try to murder her husband. A mother doesn't put poison in food. Whatever she is, she's not that anymore. Kelsey opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She had no counter. They sat in the truck while the sun dropped lower, casting orange light across the river. A family walked past with a dog. Someone jogged by with headphones in. The world kept turning, kept moving, oblivious to the fact that theirs had just shattered. I'm sorry, he said finally. Both kids looked at him. For what? Kelsey asked. For not protecting you from this. For not seeing it sooner. For. Dad, stop. Kelsey's voice was firm. You didn't do this. She did. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Ethan reached forward and squeezed his shoulder. We're okay. We'll be okay. But they wouldn't be. Not really. Not for a long time. He started the truck and drove them to the hotel on Highway 54, the only one in Red Willow worth staying at. Checked into a 2-room suite. Ordered pizza because none of them could think about cooking. His phone, returned by the police along with his other belongings, sat on a nightstand, messages from Brenda piling up, unread. He deleted them all. That night, after the kids had gone to bed in the adjoining room, he sat alone and opened his laptop. The police had copied files but left him his devices. He logged in the family cell phone account and pulled up Brenda's call history. 3 months of data. Hundreds of calls to one number. Trevor Lang. Most happened late at night. Some during the day while he was at work. A few during times when she'd told him she was at the gym. He pulled up her text messages next, backed up to the cloud. Most were deleted, but fragments remained. The kind of messages people sent when they thought they were being careful but weren't careful enough. Miss you. Can't wait until this is over. Soon, he found the email account Martinez had mentioned. The password was saved in her browser. He logged in. 6 months of correspondence. Planning. Scheming. Discussing his death like it was a business transaction. One email from Trevor caught his eye. Are you sure this is the only way? What about divorce? Brenda's response. Divorce means splitting everything. Waiting. Lawyers. His family questioning me. This way is cleaner. Insurance pays double for accidental death. We can start fresh. Start fresh. He closed the laptop before he threw it across the room. The rage he'd been holding back finally surfaced. It burned through him, hot and consuming. Not the explosive kind that made you scream or break things. This was colder, deeper, the kind that hardened into something permanent. She hadn't just betrayed him. She planned it, methodically, carefully. She'd looked him in the eye every morning and smiled while slowly killing him. And she'd almost succeeded. If he'd eaten that lunch, he'd be the one in the hospital. Or worse, Dale Rooker had 4 kids, a wife, a life, and he was fighting to survive because of a meal meant for someone else. The guilt hit him then, sudden and overwhelming. He'd given Dale that food. He'd handed it over without warning, without explanation. Even if he hadn't known for sure what was in it, he'd suspected. He'd seen Brenda add something, and he'd let Dale eat it anyway. He buried his face in his hands and let the guilt wash over him. Let himself feel it fully. Later, he'd rationalize. Later, he'd find ways to live with it. But right now, in this moment, he let himself acknowledge the truth. He'd been a coward, and Dale had paid the price. A soft knock on the connecting door. Kelsey's voice, Dad? You okay? He wiped his eyes, cleared his throat. Yeah, just tired. Can I come in? Sure. She slipped through the door in pajama pants and an old volleyball shirt. Her hair was down, her face scrubbed clean. She looked young, vulnerable. She sat on the edge of the bed. Can't sleep. Me neither. Keep thinking about Mom. About how she acted around you lately. Kelsey picked at a thread on the bedspread. She was different, I noticed, but I didn't think it meant anything. Just thought maybe you two were fighting. We weren't fighting. I know. That's what's weird. You were just apart. Like you live in the same house, but didn't see each other. She looked up at him. When did you know? Really know? This morning. When I saw her put something in the pot. And you just gave it away? I didn't know what else to do. You could have thrown it out. You could have confronted her. I could have. He met her eyes. I should have. I made a mistake, and someone else got hurt because of it. Kelsey was quiet for a moment. The guy who's in the hospital. Dale. Do you know him well? 12 years. We work together. He's a good man. Does he have kids? 4. Her face crumpled. God, Dad. I know. His kids almost lost their father because of Mom. Yes. How do you live with that? He didn't have an answer. One day at a time, I guess. She nodded slowly. Then, I'm mad at her. I know I shouldn't be, or maybe I should be, I don't know. But I am. I'm so mad. You're allowed to be mad. Ethan's handling it better than me. He's just done. Like he flipped a switch, and she stopped being his mother. I don't know how to do that. You don't have to do it his way. Everyone processes this differently. How are you processing it? He thought about that. I'm not yet. I'm just surviving right now. She leaned against his shoulder. He put his arm around her, and they sat there in silence. I don't want to visit her, Kelsey said quietly. If she goes to jail, I don't want to see her. You don't have to. Will you? No. Good. She pulled away, stood. I should try to sleep. School tomorrow. You don't have to go. You could take a few days. No. I'd rather stay busy. She paused at the door. Dad? I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you didn't eat it. Me too, sweetheart. After she left, he lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he'd go back to the police station, give more statements, talk to lawyers, figure out logistics, where to live, how to pay bills, what to tell the kids' schools. Tomorrow, he'd visit Dale in the hospital and apologize for something that couldn't be apologized for. Tomorrow, he'd face all of it. But tonight, he just let himself breathe. The hospital called at 6 in the morning. Dale had stabilized overnight. Kidney function was improving. Liver enzymes still elevated but trending in the right direction. They were cautiously optimistic. He drove to the hospital before the kids woke up, left them a note on hotel stationery. Dale's room was on the 3rd floor, ICU. His wife sat in a chair by the bed, eyes red-rimmed, hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup of coffee. She looked up when he entered, and her expression went through several rapid changes: confusion, recognition, anger. You, she said. He stopped in the doorway. I'm sorry. I should have called first. Yeah, you should have. She stood, set down the coffee. Why are you here? To check on Dale. To apologize. Apologize. She said it like the word tasted bad. You gave him poison. I didn't know. You suspected. That's what the police said. You suspected and you gave it to him anyway. Her voice rose. My husband almost died because you were too much of a coward to throw out a goddamn lunch. Every word was true. He didn't have a defense. I'm sorry, he said again. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't change anything. But I am. Get out. Lisa, get out. He left. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. He'd expected anger. He deserved it. But hearing it out loud, seeing the pain in Lisa's eyes, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. He'd hurt people, not intentionally, not maliciously. But the result was the same. Detective Morrison found him in the hospital cafeteria an hour later, nursing bad coffee and staring at nothing. Thought I might find you here, Morrison said, sitting across from him. Come to arrest me for reckless endangerment? Would you confess if I did? Probably. Morrison smiled slightly. When not arresting you. What you did was stupid, not criminal. And Dale's going to pull through, so there's that. His wife hates me. Can you blame her? No. Morrison pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Toxicology came back. Ethylene glycol. Antifreeze. Same stuff we found in your kitchen. Enough in that chili to kill 2 people if they'd eaten the whole thing. Dale got halfway through, which is why he's still alive. He opened the folder. Lab results, chemical breakdowns, medical terminology he didn't fully understand. But the conclusions were clear. We also tested your blood, Morrison continued. Elevated levels. Not enough to be immediately dangerous, but consistent with chronic low-dose exposure over several weeks. She's been poisoning me. Yep. Slowly. Carefully. Probably in your food, your drinks. Small amounts, spaced out. Wanted it to look like a natural illness. By the time you got sick enough to see a doctor, the poison would be mostly out of your system. They'd find organ damage, maybe, but attribute it to flu or infection or some underlying condition. How did you figure all this out? We've seen it before. Not often, but often enough. Usually it's the spouse. Usually there's another person involved. Usually it's about money. Morrison leaned back. Your wife's not original. She's just thorough. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, but it should make the case easier to prosecute. Morrison pulled out another document. Trevor Lang. We brought him in for questioning last night. He's cooperating. Says he knew about the affair, but not about the poisoning. Claims Brenda told him you were sick, but he thought it was natural. We're checking his story, but so far it holds up. You believe him? Mostly. He's an idiot who got involved with a married woman, but I don't think he's a killer. Your wife, on the other hand." Morrison tapped the folder. "She's something else. Cold. Calculated. She showed up at the hospital that day and cried, but she never asked if you'd eaten the food. That's what tipped us off. A normal person would say, 'Did you eat what I made? Are you sick too?' She didn't because she already knew you hadn't eaten it." He remembered Brenda in the hospital hallway. Her tears. Her performance. What happens now? She's being arraigned this afternoon. Attempted murder, reckless endangerment, assault with a deadly weapon. Prosecutors pushing for no bail given the severity and the planning involved. Probably get it too. Judge Richards doesn't like premeditated crimes. Will she plead guilty? Doubt it. Most people don't, even with overwhelming evidence. She'll probably try to make a deal. Manslaughter instead of attempted murder. Lesser sentence. And if she doesn't take a deal, trial. Probably in 3 to 6 months. You'll have to testify. So will Dale, if he's recovered enough. So will her boyfriend, the doctors, the lab techs, everyone. The thought of sitting in a courtroom, facing Brenda, telling the story again and again, it exhausted him just thinking about it. "I'll do it," he said. "Good. Because we need you." Morrison stood, collected his folder. "One more thing. Your kids. They okay? Define okay. Point taken. They should probably talk to someone. Therapist. Counselor. This kind of trauma doesn't just go away. I know. You too, by the way. You went through something. Don't pretend you didn't." After Morrison left, he sat alone in the cafeteria and watched hospital staff come and go. Doctors in scrubs. Nurses in bright colors. Visitors carrying flowers and balloons. Life went on. Even when yours fell apart, the world kept spinning. His phone buzzed. A text from Kelsey. "Ethan and I are getting breakfast downstairs. You okay?" He texted back, "Yeah. Be there in 10. The arraignment was brief and procedural. He sat in the back of the courtroom with Morrison, watching Brenda enter in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The judge read the charges. Brenda's public defender entered a plea of not guilty. The prosecutor argued against bail. The defense asked for leniency, cited Brenda's ties to the community, her lack of prior record. Judge Richards listened to both sides, then denied bail. The evidence suggests a calculated, premeditated attempt to cause serious bodily harm resulting in one individual's critical hospitalization, Richards said. Given the severity of the crime and the defendant's apparent willingness to harm others, I cannot in good conscience release her pending trial. Brenda's face remained blank. They let her out. She didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered. Not many. Red Willow wasn't big enough to warrant that kind of attention, but enough. Local news. A stringer from the Kansas City paper. Someone with a camera. He ducked his head and walked past his truck. A woman with a microphone intercepted him. "Mr. Holloway, how do you feel about your wife's arrest?" No comment. "Is it true she tried to poison you?" He kept walking. "Do you feel guilty about what happened to Dale Rooker?" That stopped him. He turned, met her eyes. Every day. Her expression shifted, surprised he'd answered, maybe, or surprised by his honesty. "But I didn't put the poison in the food," he continued. "My wife did, and she's the one who needs to answer for it." He got in his truck and drove away. Life developed a strange, new rhythm over the following weeks. He moved out of the hotel and into a rental house on the south side of town. Small, 2 bedrooms, but clean and quiet. The kids helped him set up. Kelsey organized the kitchen. Ethan assembled furniture. They didn't talk about Brenda unless necessary. The insurance company investigated, delayed the payout while the criminal case proceeded. He couldn't access their joint accounts. Everything was frozen pending the outcome. His lawyer said it could take months to sort out. He worked, came home, cooked meals for his kids. They ate together at the small kitchen table, making conversation that felt both normal and surreal. Kelsey talked about school. Ethan mentioned a video game he wanted. They avoided the elephant in the room until it became so familiar they forgot it was there. Dale returned to work after 3 weeks, thinner and moving carefully but alive. He didn't speak much. Dale was cordial but distant. The others at the garage were the same, polite, professional, but wary. Like he was contaminated somehow. Maybe he was. He visited a therapist Morrison had recommended, a woman in her 50s who specialized in trauma and family violence. She asked him how he was sleeping. Not well. Dreams. Sometimes. He didn't tell her about the recurring one where he ate the lunch himself, where he woke up in a hospital bed with Brenda standing over him, smiling, where he couldn't move or speak or scream. The therapist gave him exercises, breathing techniques, grounding methods. He did them dutifully, but without much faith they'd help. What helped was cooking. He'd never been much of a cook. Brenda had handled meals, and he'd mostly reheated or ordered out. But now he learned, watched videos online, followed recipes, made mistakes and tried again. He cooked for his kids. Simple things at first, pasta, stir-fry tacos. Then more complicated, roasted chicken, homemade bread, soups that simmered all day. He labeled everything in the refrigerator, marked dates, checked ingredients obsessively. Kelsey noticed. "Dad, we trust you." "I know, but I need to be sure." She didn't argue. The kids saw their school counselors. Kelsey went once a week. Ethan refused after 2 sessions, said talking didn't help. He seemed to process things internally in silence. His grades stayed steady. He still hung out with friends. But something in him had hardened, calcified. He recognized it because he felt it too. The preliminary hearing happened in February. Brenda appeared via video from the county jail. Her lawyer tried to get the charges reduced. The prosecutor presented evidence, emails, text messages, toxicology reports, witness statements. The judge ruled there was sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. Trial was set for April. March brought an early thaw. The river ice broke up and flowed downstream in jagged chunks. The trees budded. Red willow shook off winter and started thinking about spring. He received a letter from Brenda. Handwritten, 2 pages. He almost threw it away without reading it. But curiosity won. "I'm sorry," it began. "I know that's not enough. I know nothing I say can fix what I did. But I need you to know I never wanted to hurt you. I was confused, lost. I made terrible choices." The letter went on. Explanations, justifications, talking about feeling trapped, about the marriage being dead, about wanting a way out that didn't destroy her financially. Trevor made me feel alive again. Made me feel like myself. I know that sounds selfish, but it's true. I didn't plan to hurt anyone. It just happened. Just happened. Like poisoning someone was an accident. Like attempted murder was something you stumbled into. The letter ended with a plea. "Please don't let the kids hate me. Please tell them I love them. I made a mistake, but I'm still their mother." He read it twice, then fed it through the shredder in the rental house's tiny office. Kelsey asked about it that night. "Was that for Mom?" "Yeah." "What did she say?" "That she's sorry. That she loves you guys." "Do you believe her?" He thought about that. "I believe she believes it." "That's not the same thing." "No, it's not." Kelsey was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't want to see her." "You don't have to." Ethan said she wrote him too. He threw it away without opening it. "That's his choice." "Is it bad that I don't miss her?" "No, sweetheart. It's not bad." Later that night, after the kids were asleep, he sat on the small porch of the rental house and looked at the stars. Clear sky, no moon. The kind of night that made you feel small in a good way, like your problems were too tiny to matter in the grand scheme of the universe. But they did matter. To him, to his kids, to Dale and his family. The trial was coming. He'd have to face Brenda in court, tell his story, answer questions, live through it all again. He wasn't ready. Didn't know if he'd ever be ready. But he'd do it anyway. Because some lines, once crossed, couldn't be uncrossed. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. Some choices had consequences that echoed forever. And Brenda had made her choice. Now she had to live with it. The trial began on a Tuesday in April, when the dogwoods were blooming and the air smelled like rain and new grass. The courthouse was old, built in 1892, with high ceilings and creaky floors and windows that let in pale morning light. He'd walked past it 1,000 times in his life, never imagining he'd be inside as a witness to his wife's attempted murder trial. The prosecution's case was methodical. They called the police officers who'd executed the search warrant, who testified about finding the rat poison in the kitchen cabinet, about the emails on the hidden iPad, about Brenda's reaction when they informed her of the charges. They called the forensic toxicologist, a woman from the state crime lab who explained ethylene glycol poisoning in clinical terms, how it metabolized in the body, what symptoms it caused, how much was required to be lethal. She tested both the chili and his blood samples. The concentration in the food was approximately 40 grams of ethylene glycol per liter, she said. A lethal dose for an average adult male is around 100 grams. Mr. Rooker consumed approximately half the container, which contained roughly 60 grams total. That's why he survived. He didn't ingest enough for a fatal outcome, though it was close. And the defendant's husband? The prosecutor asked. His blood work showed chronic exposure, levels consistent with repeated low-dose ingestion over a period of several weeks. His symptoms, dizziness, nausea, fatigue, organ stress, all align with ethylene glycol poisoning. Could these symptoms be mistaken for natural illness? Absolutely. That's why it's sometimes used in cases like this. It mimics flu, kidney disease, even alcoholism in some cases. Without specific testing, it can go undetected. The defense attorney, a tired-looking man named Patterson who'd been assigned to the case, cross-examined but made little headway. The science was solid. The evidence was clear. They called Dr. Patel, who testified about Dale's hospitalization, his treatment, his prognosis. Dale had recovered physically, though he'd need ongoing monitoring for kidney function. The damage might be permanent. They called Dale himself. He watched his co-worker take the stand, still thinner than before, still moving carefully. Dale avoided looking at him. The prosecutor led Dale through his testimony. The morning at work, the chili, the collapse, the hospital, 3 weeks of recovery, medical bills that insurance only partially covered, missing work, his kids' fear that their father wouldn't come home. Do you blame the defendant? The prosecutor asked. Dale finally looked at Brenda, sitting at the defense table in a dark blue dress her lawyer had provided. Her hair was styled. Her makeup was subtle. She looked like a school teacher or a church volunteer, not someone who tried to commit murder. Yeah, Dale said. I blame her. The defense's cross-examination tried to shift focus. Wasn't it possible the poisoning was accidental? A mistake? Could she have thought she was adding something else to the pot? Dale's expression hardened. She knew what she was doing. How can you be sure? Because people don't accidentally add rat poison to food. And they don't accidentally plan to kill their husband for insurance money. None of this was accidental. The judge sustained an objection, but the point was made. Then they called him. He walked to the witness stand on legs that felt unsteady, placed his hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Brenda watched him with an expression he couldn't read. The prosecutor's questions were straightforward. Tell us about your marriage. When did things change? What did you observe? What happened the morning of the incident? He answered mechanically, keeping his voice even, his tone neutral. He described watching Brenda add something to the pot, giving the food to Dale. The collapse, the hospital, the realization. How did you feel when you learned your wife had been poisoning you? The prosecutor asked. Numb, like I was watching it happen to someone else. Do you still feel that way? Sometimes. What do you feel the rest of the time? He looked at Brenda. She looked back, her eyes wet, but her face composed. Angry, he said. Betrayed. Grateful I'm alive. Guilty that someone else got hurt instead. Do you believe the defendant intended to kill you? Yes. Why? Because she told Trevor Lang she did. Because she planned how long it would take. Because she changed her beneficiary on a life insurance policy. Because she's been slowly poisoning me for weeks. His voice stayed calm, factual. People don't do those things by accident. Patterson's cross-examination tried to paint him as paranoid, as someone who jumped to conclusions. Had he actually seen what she put in the pot? Could he be certain it was poison? Wasn't it possible his illness was unrelated? I saw her do it, he said, and the toxicology report confirms it. So yes, I'm certain. But you gave the food to another person without warning him. Doesn't that make you culpable? I didn't know for sure what she'd done. I suspected, but I didn't know. If I'd known, I would have gone to the police immediately. But you suspected. You said so yourself. And yet you let Mr. Rooker eat it. The guilt he'd been carrying surfaced, sharp and immediate. Yes, that's something I'll have to live with. But I didn't put the poison in the food. Your client did. Patterson tried a few more angles, but nothing stuck. The facts were the facts. The defense called character witnesses, Brenda's sister, who testified that Brenda was a good mother, a caring person, someone who'd never hurt anyone. A former co-worker who said Brenda was conscientious and kind. A neighbor who called her thoughtful and generous. But character witnesses can't undo physical evidence. Can't explain away emails planning someone's death. Can't rationalize poison in food. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. They laid out the timeline, the evidence, the intent. They showed the jury the emails. Read them portions of Brenda's correspondence with Trevor Lang. Displayed medical reports showing the damage done to both Dale and him. This was not a crime of passion, the prosecutor said. This was not a moment of anger or confusion. This was calculated, premeditated, cold-blooded. Brenda Holloway decided her husband was worth more dead than alive, and she set about making that happen. The only reason he's alive today is because he made a split-second decision not to eat the lunch she prepared. Dale Rooker nearly died because of that decision, but the intent was clear. The defendant wanted her husband dead, and she was willing to slowly poison him to make it happen. Patterson's closing focused on reasonable doubt, on the possibility of mistake, on Brenda's character and lack of criminal history. We all make mistakes, he said. We all have moments we're not proud of. That doesn't make us murderers. The prosecution has built a circumstantial case based on emails taken out of context, on medical evidence that could have multiple explanations, on assumptions about my client's state of mind. But intent matters, and they haven't proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Brenda Holloway intended to kill anyone. It was a weak argument. Everyone in the courtroom knew it. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They came back with a verdict, guilty on all counts. Brenda's face crumpled when the foreman read the words. She cried, real tears this time, not the performed ones from the hospital. Her sister sobbed in the gallery. Trevor Lang, who'd attended every day of the trial, looked at the floor. He felt nothing, just that same numbness he'd carried for months. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. He didn't attend, couldn't bring himself to sit through it. Morrison called him with the results. 8 years in state prison, Morrison said. No possibility of early release for the first 5. Judge Richards doesn't mess around with attempted murder. What about parole after that? Possible, but given the circumstances, I doubt it. She'll probably serve close to the full sentence. 8 years. Kelsey would be 23 when Brenda got out. Ethan would be 20. They'd be adults. Their mother would have missed their entire adolescence. He tried to feel something about that. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. But all he felt was tired. You okay? Morrison asked. Define okay. Fair point. Look, I know this has been hell, but it's over now. You can move on. Could he? Moving on implied leaving something behind. But this wasn't something you left behind. This was something you carried. Thanks for everything, he said. Just doing my job. Take care of yourself. And those kids. After hanging up, he sat in the rental house's small living room and looked at nothing in particular. The trial was over. Brenda was going to prison. Justice, such as it was, had been served. But justice didn't erase what happened. Didn't undo the betrayal. Didn't give him back the marriage he'd thought he had. It just ended things. Summer came. The kids finished the school year. Kelsey made honor roll despite everything. Ethan got invited to a friend's lake house for a week, his first trip without family since the trial. He finalized the divorce, surprisingly straightforward since Brenda couldn't contest it from prison. She signed the papers without argument. Their assets were divided according to Missouri law. The house was sold, the proceeds split. The life insurance policy was voided, the attempted beneficiary change nullified. He bought a small house in town, older, but solid, with a yard and a porch. Moved the kids in. Set up their rooms the way they wanted them. Life took shape around the empty space where Brenda used to be. He still cooked every meal himself. Still labeled everything in the refrigerator. Still locked the doors at night and checked them twice before bed. Trust, once shattered, was hard to rebuild. Maybe impossible. Dale eventually spoke to him again. Not as friends, exactly, but without the cold distance of those first months. They worked together, shared coffee in the break room, talked about work and weather and anything except what had happened. It was enough. The kids adjusted in their own ways. Kelsey talked to her therapist, worked through her anger and grief and confusion. She asked to visit Brenda in prison once, then decided against it. Said she wasn't ready. Might never be ready. Ethan never asked. Never mentioned his mother unless directly questioned. He closed that door and seemed determined to keep it closed. He worried about that sometimes, wondered if his son was suppressing feelings that would explode later. But Ethan seemed genuinely okay. Happy even, like a weight had been lifted. Maybe it had. Some nights, he sat on the porch of the new house and watched the stars and thought about everything that had happened. About the marriage he'd thought he had versus the one he'd actually been living. About the woman he'd loved versus the woman who'd tried to kill him. They were different people. Or maybe she'd always been the second one, and he'd just been too naive to see it. Either way, it didn't matter now. People asked if he hated her. Friends, acquaintances, the therapist. He didn't. Hate took energy he didn't have. Hate kept you connected to the thing you were supposed to be leaving behind. He'd press charges because some lines, once crossed, ended things permanently. Because attempted murder wasn't something you forgave or forgot or moved past. Because his children needed to see that actions had consequences, that justice mattered, that you didn't let people destroy you just because you'd once loved them. Brenda hadn't lost her freedom because he was angry or vindictive or cruel. She'd lost it because she'd chosen to poison the man who'd trusted her most. Because she'd planned his death like a business transaction. Because she'd valued money over a human life, his life. And he'd chosen to survive. That was the real victory, he realized. Not the trial or the guilty verdict or the prison sentence. The victory was waking up every morning, making breakfast for his kids, going to work, coming home, living. The victory was refusing to let her actions define the rest of his life. The victory was survival. 1 year after the trial, he stood in his kitchen making dinner. Pasta with homemade sauce. Nothing fancy, but the kids liked it. Kelsey set the table. Ethan was upstairs, music filtering down through the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, but something made him open it. This is Trevor Lang. I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know what she was planning. I know that probably doesn't matter, but I'm sorry anyway. He stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Don't contact me again." He blocked the number. Trevor Lang wasn't his problem. Trevor Lang's guilt wasn't his burden to carry. He had enough of his own. "Dad, pasta's boiling over," Kelsey called. He turned back to the stove, moved the pot, stirred the sauce. Life went on, even after betrayal, even after attempted murder, even after everything fell apart. You just kept cooking, kept eating, kept breathing. You survived, and eventually, survival stopped feeling like the bare minimum and started feeling like enough. Dinner was good that night. They ate together at the small table, talking about nothing important, school, work, a movie Ethan wanted to see. Normal conversation. Normal life. Later, after the kids had gone to bed, he stood at the kitchen sink and looked out the window. The stars were bright. The street was quiet. His house, not theirs, his, was warm and safe and locked tight. He'd survived. His kids had survived. They were okay. Not perfect, not undamaged, but okay. And that, in the end, was the victory that mattered most. The lunch he didn't finish had saved his life. Dale's near death had exposed the truth. The trial had delivered justice. But this quiet moment in his own kitchen, in his own house, with his kids safe upstairs, this was what it had all been for. He dried his hands on a towel, turned off the lights, and went upstairs. Tomorrow, he'd wake up and do it all again. Cook breakfast, go to work, come home, live, one day at a time, one meal at a time, one breath at a time, surviving. And maybe, eventually, that would turn into something more. But for now, survival was enough.